Welcome to this week's episode of Tomorrow's Web. I'm Joey Primiani.
And I'm Daniel Brusilovsky. And Tomorrow's Web is all about young entrepreneurs, people, technology, anything that relates to young people in tech. And that's what Tomorrow's Web is about.
We're really excited about this episode. This has been a long time coming, and we really just want to create. This is our first episode, so we really believe in. We want to have a really great forum for communication with young entrepreneurs, designers, and developers, and kind of showcasing like the stuff that we're working on, as well as everybody in Silicon Valley, and really excited to do this show. So. Yeah, let's get started.
And joining us this week, so the way this show is going to work is typically every month we'll do an episode of Tomorrow's Web, and we'll have, so Joey and I will be here every month, and then every month we'll kind of bring in new entrepreneurs, designers, developers, etc. And this month we have Brian Wong, who's the founder and CEO of Keep. He's actually joining us from the Seattle airport right now. Because of his crazy schedules and traveling and things like that. But Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about Keep and what Keep is?
Absolutely. So Keep is a real rewards network for leveraging achievements, the mobile games that you love. And when you hit achievements, you can get real rewards. So imagine level up after walking from Starbucks.
Yeah. Brian. Just so we're perfectly clear, Brian is at the airport, so bandwidth isn't necessarily the best at airports, as we know. But hopefully things get better over the course of the show. But so the way we're gonna kind of do the show is we have different segments. And our first segment is called Planet of the Apps, where we're all going to talk about some of our favorite apps that we've been using lately. And, if anyone has suggestions for apps, we're watching the chat room live. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to bring those up. But Joey, you have some favorite apps you want to start with?
Yeah, definitely. So Planet of the Apps, we should have a little intro for that one coming in. So yeah, our first app, we could switch to the computer. Okay, great. Yeah, so our first app is called Cortex, and Cortex is something that I showed off on the last episode, and something I definitely can't live without. It's you can get it at cortexapp.com, and basically what it is a sharing platform. So say I go to one of my favorite sites called Found. I can literally just click and hold, and it brings up this pie menu of where I want to send it to. So you can see here that I could do that again, and being able to actually see where or who I want to send it to. So I created this because I really saw a need that a lot of people were sharing things across the web, and it was just a very, very kind of tough and difficult process. So say I want to send it to my friend Nikki, be like, hey, we can actually go, say I do an article on TechCrunch. Let's actually send it to Daniel. Hey, you would love this. And then boom, you could see that, it's shared via Cortex right there to Daniel that quick. And you could share anything from images, videos, pieces of text. And we think this is, really, really cool app. And so you can get it at cortexapp.com. The next app I definitely want to go through is another one called Cloud App, and you can get this at getcloudapp.com, and it's something I use all the time because I'm designing and doing screenshots and mocks, and basically you can literally choose any file, say on your desktop. What I do this actually for a screenshot. So say I take a screenshot of my desktop. What I do is, if I have a file, all I have to do is go up here and drag it to this Cloud App icon. And so what this is actually doing right now is that, say I want to share that file with somebody, it copies and pastes into my URL bar, and I'd be able to actually, that quickly it sent the screenshot. So that's something really, really cool. It creates the, if you have your own URL creator, you can also add that on there, and something that I use all the time, just for when I'm creating and designing things, to be able to send screenshots really, or mocks or files or anything really, really quickly between your friends.
Yeah, so one of my favorite new apps is called Ness, and Ness is a a search engine based on what kind of food and cuisines you like. It's also one of the most beautifully designed iPhone apps that I've seen in quite some time. But what I really like about Nest is, I like Yelp because it has such a wide variety of places and things like that. And so, but what I want to do is what Yelp doesn't do is it doesn't bring in my friends and shows me their reviews. What I want is I want to be able to bring reviews of places like restaurants from my friends and then bring that in and show it in a beautiful app, which is exactly what Nest is. And so Nest brings in my Facebook social graph as well as Foursquare check-ins to see who's checked in where recently, and it shows up on Nest, which is a gorgeous app, and it definitely knows me better than a service like Yelp. So that's my one of my favorite new apps.
Yeah, I love the fact that Nest, especially at Google, a lot of people are talking about contextual discovery and being able to know exactly, there's everything that we do, whether it's getting, food from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and, being able to make these decisions, not having to do it ourselves, but having another application to be able to do this for us. So it's very, it's focused on restaurants right now, and it's very focused towards, kind of almost being a Yelp competitor, but making the actual description much smaller, so it's very easy to parse. So say I'm going out to dinner and I want to find a really good restaurant, instead of going through long Yelp reviews, I could definitely actually just kind of see in 140 characters or less kind of snippet of what the actual restaurant is. So it's very cool. Definitely check it out. It's likeness.com.
Yep. And then Brian, you have a few favorites too, right?
Yeah, actually, back to Nest, one of the things that they do really well is they put together amazing social recommendations. But I remember using it in New York for breakfast. I've actually used it so many times in the last week that I find that it's only because of its beauty that I'm now able to tolerate the functionality of Yelp combined with the social graph that I think they're doing really well. And the story behind Nest is actually really fascinating. They actually built an algorithm when they were pitching their first VC, that they were basically taking his Facebook page, and they scraped through all of the data and the interests, and all of a sudden were able to recommend what he would most likely like to eat. And that was the reason why they got funded. That was the story behind that. And I think that same recommendation engine, that algorithm that they're using, and they're now trying to apply that across multiple platforms, but starting with food. And I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a
and
very
my next favorite
app.
app that I'm going to talk about is, I will talk about Wunderlist. And Wunderlist is an amazing to-do list app. I know a lot of people have doubts, get things done. The GTD app space is a space that yeah, sure, that's great. Now let me let me see how it works first. Is it actually going to do what I want it to do? And a lot of apps, like Remember the Milk, Things, they cost a lot. They have subscriptions. They have multiple apps and different platforms that cost a lot of money. I think I asked a friend of mine, how much did it cost you to have Things across all your devices? And they said it cost them about $90. But Wunderlist is completely free. And what it does is it uses a really robust HTML5 engine. It's beautifully designed. And you can use it on your iPad, your iPhone, and your Mac. And it's a gorgeous device. It's a gorgeous app. It's really good. And it's one of the first that I've figured that would fill my gap until Apple finally rolls out reminders with the full-on release of iOS 5.
Yeah, I think Wunderlist is definitely an awesome app. I actually personally use it because I do switch between computers. Like right now I have my MacBook in front of me, and then at home I have an iMac. And so being able to keep everything synced, all my to-dos, I mean, that's something that Things has been lacking for quite some time. And I think Wunderlist has great over-the-air sync, and it really works well. And they have a great iPhone and iPad client. I think they have an Android app. They have Windows, Mac. I mean, they basically have everything that things has been lacking on for the last few months, and they've been saying how much they're working on, you know, over-the-air sync, and they want to release it and make sure when they do release it, they do it right instead of doing it, you know, not necessarily, you know, rushing it, which I guess is understandable. But I think Wunderlist is a fantastic alternative.
How is this better than like things for
awesome.
OS?
And I think I have another one that I'm going to talk about. That's news.me. And I think this is related to recent tech news, at the fact that Andrew Ricewood actually left BetaWorks a day ago. I think the news broke to Union Square Ventures. But part of Andrew's baby at BetaWorks was an app called news.me. And news.me is an app that I believe you can. It was a subscription-based app that you would have to pay using Apple's new subscription iOS functionality, and they actually made it free. And I think that I'm not going to try to assume anything, but it means that the subscription model may not have been the most effective in helping them generate the type of critical mass they wanted and actually people using and reading the app. The funny thing was that the app relies on tweets and social graphs to make relevant news recommendations. So if you're trying to gate it with a subscription fee, the usefulness of it is going to be quite limited. But I found it very interesting that now it's open and everybody can try it and they don't have to pay for it on a monthly basis.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
I mean,
cool.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed some trends when it came to like subscription services that, you know, when you launch it, I think when news.me launched, they didn't even have a free version. It was just paid. So I think having that, you know, that chains shows that they're kind of willing to play around the market and see kind of what's going on. But there's a few other apps. You know, one that's really been taking off surprisingly from AOL is Editions, which is a very personalized. It's a very personalized experience combining like
I love
Flipboard.
Editions.
Yeah, Editions is great. I mean, when you open up the app, the first thing it tells you is what's the weather, who's today's birthday, all this information that Flipboard necessarily isn't tracking. I mean, they're helping share and pull in social data, but when it comes to that information like who's today's birthday, where I typically go to Facebook to get that information, now I'm getting that by just opening up an app called Editions. And so for me, I think it's a great experience.
I have a huge gripe with the fact that they don't have a landscape version, though.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think our next section or our next segment is called Kids in the Valley, where we're going to be talking about, you know, some advice that we've kind of gotten as well as we've given to entrepreneurs in building a product and things like that. So Joey, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, sure. We can start off with ourselves first too, because people in the chat room are asking about us. So
Speaking to the mic.
Yeah, so basically, I'm Joey Primiani. I'm the founder of Backplane, and so we're actually like a stealth kind of startup right now. But so Backplane, we actually just raised $2 million from Tomorrow Ventures, Google Ventures, SV Angel, Ron Conway, a bunch of Menlo Ventures, a bunch of like big people in Silicon Valley, and Lady Gaga, and as well as a couple other people. So we're really excited. This is something that I've wanted to see for a really long time, of being able to work with basically the smartest people that I can find. Like, we're a bunch of developers and hackers living in downtown Palo Alto, and you know, that's where I'm from. We're in downtown Palo Alto. We're right on University. And
Joey, can you tell us how you got Lady Gaga on board?
Yeah, we actually through like kind of a mutual kind of relationship with some of the people that I've worked with before, but we're working really closely with kind of her team in LA, and you know, it's really exciting because like literally just like 2 weeks ago I had a meeting with her in LA about like some of the technologies we're working on, and she's like really excited about everything, and we have this kind of like really creative team that works on just technology.
How does she synthesize these ideas? Does she actually understand what the type of things are that you guys are trying to build for her is? Like,
yeah.
Is that,
I mean, we work
is there
really,
that sort of mutual understanding there, or is like an understanding of how she could create that fame from technology, or how does she synthesize it?
We work really, really closely together, and it's technology that I've wanted, like, you know, I've definitely wanted to see for a really long time. So she really is excited about that. And she has definitely a lot of input, obviously, you know, but she kind of lets, like, the product and technology is very much in-house in Silicon Valley, but she gives, like, really great feedback and suggestions for everything. So it's definitely been like an amazing kind of opportunity. I'm really excited to, you know, start rolling out some things to the public very, very soon. And previous to this, I worked at Google in the user experience design team on Google Search. So basically, I was creating, you know, new types of user experiences and design for mobile and tablet. And I was actually one of the youngest kids that people that started working at Google when I was 19. I'm 22 right now, and basically I came out to Silicon Valley to work with the smartest people I could find. And be able to, you know, work with, like, kind of the smartest people I could find, and you know, I really learned a lot from Marissa Meyer, a lot of people on the UX team, a lot, you know, Larry and Sergey, and being able to, like, build these applications that, you know, I helped launch the mobile application that's now used by 750 million people on a daily basis. So it's pretty, you know, it really took off, and coming up with features and ideas and doing things that I love that, you know, really empower knowledge and creativity and design. That's really what I feel like my, you know, mission here is. Like, I'm very, very kind of focused on creating beautiful experiences and things that, you know, really are useful and helpful to people, and ones that people use on a daily basis. So yeah, that's a little bit my background. And then
yeah, so I'll kind of do a condensed version of that. So I've started a few projects. The current one I'm working on is called Teens in Tech Labs, and our whole goal is to be able to help young entrepreneurs. We currently run a conference, an incubator, and we also have a little bit of a editorial presence. But I think, you know, one of the things that we've been really, or one of the things I've been seeing a lot lately with young entrepreneurs is that, you know, everyone is very excited about the things they're working on. Obviously, Joey, Brian, myself, and hundreds of other young entrepreneurs are very excited about what they're working on. But, you know, for every kind of visionary, there's always someone kind of building that vision. And so one of the things that we've really started pushing is bringing more technical founders. And so I think one of the big things that I'd definitely like to see, and like a big kind of piece of advice, that if you're kind of a young entrepreneur or you want to get into tech or you want to do your own startup, is learn how to code and learn how to be technical. Because I mean, you know, you're technical. You can do front end and some back end stuff. I used to, you know, code when I was, you know, 13 and 14. And then Brian, when you were originally starting Keep, you built the entire prototype yourself. And, you know, I think that whole experience, you know, where you have to actually do it yourself and you learn all these things, I mean, that I think is extremely valuable.
I think that's really important too. Like, just when I was coming up with, you know, web applications and things, like, even if you have any sort of idea that you have in your head, it's really good to write down. Like, so I encourage everybody that's watching the show to just always write down all their ideas, because you never know, even if you put it on the shelf for a little while, you never know when it's actually going to be great. And if you can bring to the table, you know, when you're trying to look for more people to work with you know, hiring people or finding a co-founder, or, you know, basically being able to raise money, the more that you could bring to the table, the better. So that's why it's really important, not just with the idea, but to be able to do, I did a lot of my initial first mocks and prototypes and everything like that, and really, really being persistent.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And it's an absolute honor to be here with you guys. I think what's happened over the last year, it's funny. I think some of the people who are watching today may have watched us a year ago when we were first doing something similar. And I think it's great that we're now formalizing it. But Joey, I mean, what you're building and how you've, you know, positioned your expertise and your superpower is around the ability to create these magically visually appealing, but also very utilitarian sort of applications. And then Dan, you, with what you've done with the labs and the conference, is you've brought the community together. And without you two, I think in the Bay Area, the youth force, so to speak, I think wouldn't have its two sort of prime faces. And so for me, I mean, one of the things I've been very lucky with is I'm a relative newcomer to the Valley. I moved down early last year to work at Dig. My very condensed version of my background is I ended up getting laid off from Dig because Dig went in an opposite direction. And I had 2 months where I had a lot of time to kill. And I ended up playing a lot of mobile games in my time that I was trying to kill. And I also noticed that a lot of other people playing mobile games, maybe not just trying to kill time, but just because mobile games were blowing up. When I realized that there was a premise to building a business around, what I realized was essentially non-utilized attention in the achievement moment. And so I started that company in September last year. Today we raised around $4.5 million from True Ventures, Hummer Winblad, and Crosslink and Verizon Ventures, and we're now around 18 people. This experience over the last year, and there's been things that I've seen over the last year that I will look back on. So, maybe that wasn't so smart. Maybe I'll do this one instead, or do this thing, and these mistakes that I'm learning from is very valuable. I'm very excited to be able to share some of those things over the course of time on this show.
Yeah, definitely. I think, one of the big things that I've seen is, there's a group on Facebook called ML Gen where it's a group of about 70 or 80 young people in general who are passionate about technology.
I love those guys.
Yeah, and joining a group like that, I think, is really important because you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and similar and have this not necessarily the same views, but kind of the same passions and interests. And I think, being in that group, I think you see a bunch of young entrepreneurs and kind of the stuff that they see and how they look at things. And there's some very interesting discussions that have happened. And so, like, groups like that, I think another, there's definitely other organizations and groups that try to promote these kind of things, but I think bringing that all together and bringing yourself with other like-minded people who care about the same things that you do, I think will help you become more creative and more passionate because you're seeing what's happening around you.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's really important just to create this. The reason why I really love to do this show was, really to empower young entrepreneurs to really go out there and do their dream of, we're going to be showcasing some of the top people in Silicon, like top up and coming people in Silicon Valley about, what technologies they're working on, as well as raising funding and the whole process, and really getting inspired by kind of people's stories and things like that. So, I think that this is something that has been needed for a really long time because, you kind of see like Big Ideas or Big Idea by Donny Deutsch, and there's a couple other, kind of shows, but nothing really that showcases or people that are actually building the technology, the ones that are actually doing it. So
I was actually having breakfast with a venture capitalist earlier last week, and he's known me for a couple of years, and I remember him telling me that he's like, Brian, you've gotten old. I'm like, yeah, I know, I got old. What are you talking about? He's like, well, I had lunch last week with 3 entrepreneurs that were pitching me an idea, ages 16, 17, and 18, respectively. They keep getting younger, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I can compete with that now. I feel old now.
And it's definitely a growing trend. I mean, we're seeing entrepreneurs starting, companies or doing these interesting projects, and they are becoming younger and younger and younger. And the reason is because the barrier to entry to start something has gone down to almost nothing. I mean, you can, get a website up and running in a few hours, or even less if, DNS propagates and stuff like that. But the barrier to entry to start something has almost come down to nothing. And so that's why, when I hear a lot from young entrepreneurs who say they want to start something, but they don't know where to start or things like that, or they have an idea, but, they don't know how to code and things like that. There's a bunch of resources available. Like, one of my favorite things is going on YouTube and looking at tutorials for how to do like custom PHP applications or things like that, and reading things and reading just tutorials in general, because you can learn so much from that alone. And so I think, you know, going through that and being able to kind of teach yourself in kind of one way or another is also kind of important.
Even more potent is this movement away from college being an avenue to building the legitimacy or the knowledge base to be able to create a successful company. A good friend of ours, Dale Stevens, has started an organization and a movement called Uncollege, and he's absolutely blown up over the last year. There has been an immense amount of attention on Dale as the leader of this movement around college being a part of our lives that may in the future not be needed or needs to be changed completely. That the speed of college as a vehicle and helping us learn and helping us be fast enough to cope with technology and to be successful in this world is starting to become extremely limited.
Absolutely. But I think, you know, one of the big things is, you know, as we evolve and as technology evolves, there's going to be less and less reasons why you can't be able to do something. I mean, Andrew Bracken in the chat room mentioned another great resource, which is Hacker News, which is news.ycombinator.com. I mean, there's a bunch of really interesting links and discussions going on Hacker News, and I think that's a great place. And, you know, I think not necessarily not for, you know, college necessarily isn't for everyone. This is, you know, a year ago we had a very long and lengthy discussion about college. I think it's one of those things where you definitely need that experience. You can't get a college experience anywhere else. But at the same time, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't, you know, you definitely want to get into the game. Brian, you were very lucky because you skipped 4 years of school and ended up graduating college at 19. But, you know, others have to wait until they're 21 or 22 to graduate. And so there's this, you know, not saying time lost, but that's time that could have been spent building their companies.
Yeah, definitely. I think
it's the opportunity cost of not starting it now and waiting a little later. The years almost become longer because of the amount of acceleration and the technologies and tools that we have. So I feel like when I was doing it, and again, it's so weird. I'm like, when I was doing it, I graduated 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, even the opportunity cost of not starting something early was starting to become greater and greater and greater. And now, if I had done it again, I really wouldn't know what to do with myself. I got very lucky with the situation that I was in. I'm able to look, I guess, from both sides of the table because I am, you know, of the age of someone who would have dropped out of college, but also finished it. The benefits, to be honest, when I sit down with people, it's just a checkbox. Like, did you graduate? Yes, I guess I did. I graduated from a Canadian university. What is it called? University of British Columbia? Oh, wait, is that in Britain? No. In Vancouver. It's in Canada. Wow, really? Okay, I've never heard of it before. So at the end of the day, the college becomes a brand that I think, unless there's a very good reason that you need to learn a large chunk of foundational knowledge to become a doctor or a scientist or something that's very formalized in how it's evolved as a career, an entrepreneur as a path is not something that's been formalized at all, and it shouldn't be. And I'm very glad that notion is still very much so kicking today, and that's the reason why college doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that we've definitely been looking at lately is just a bunch of really awesome young entrepreneurs. And, you know, there was, you know, TechCrunch Disrupt happened this last week, and one of the hackathon participants was a 15-year-old entrepreneur from Israel, and he built an app called Doweet, and that's D-O-W-E-E-T, which is now featured on the front page of the App Store for iOS, which is crazy to think that earlier this week, not too many people knew even who he was or what Doweet was. And now the fact that he's 15 years old from Israel, spent, this week in San Francisco, and his app is now featured on the front page of the App Store is quite remarkable. And that kind of shows that how things have really changed in the last 10 years, is that this probably wouldn't have been possible in 10 years ago. But now a 15-year-old from Israel is able to come to San Francisco, build something like Dewey, and have it featured on the front page of the largest app store in the world. I mean, this is really where technology is going, and that's why I think we're all so excited about it, is because there is so much going on, so much excitement in this area.
Shall we jump into highlighting a few of them?
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing in regards to college. I think definitely, college is very important experience, but I would definitely recommend that experience, especially in Silicon Valley, is so much more important. If you have just a BS in computer science, but you don't have any, portfolio or things that you've worked on before, you'll go a lot longer with, if you have, a website with, basically all the projects that you worked on in the past, or if you want to create your own startup, it's definitely now's the time to be able to, it doesn't matter as much anymore about, college when you're an actual entrepreneur. So I definitely recommend, staying in school, but, there's certain opportunities and certain, it's a case by case with everybody. But I definitely, the biggest thing I took away from my computer science degree in my background was basically learning how to work together in a team, so like when we were coming up with projects and coming up with things in school, being able to really learn how to come up with an idea and then work with people together and then being able to execute on something like that. A lot of things that you can actually learn.
There's one quick thing I did want to talk about on the movement of design. And in college right now, there's especially in Stanford and beyond, the D School. You may have heard of it before. It's basically a school of thinking designed to be aligned with this new topic that's been emerging that combines business thinking, technical management, human resources, everything into something called design thinking. And I actually bought a book the other day. It's the textbook that they use in one of these classes. Not that I'm trying to become uber academic, but this textbook is entitled Business and Model Generation. And it was amazing because it takes almost the most successful business models from across the world in the largest companies that have been very innovative with how they've generated revenue, and they put it into one book, but helps you apply what you've learned from these different business models into something that could be a coherent whole. That fascinates me because I think the future of education is around how the applicability of what's happened in real life and fast, and how that's been proven because of the fact that technology is now able to prove business models so quickly, allowing us to see those cases and applying those in real life. That excites me a lot. And I think if those programs continue to succeed, I think maybe there could be a future in business education.
There's a couple of those schools. Yeah, the D School one that you mentioned is definitely a really good one for entrepreneurs and designers. I talked to a lot of people from, being in Palo Alto at the Stanford School. And I definitely see that there's more of these kind of colleges that are actually teaching entrepreneurship courses, and I think that's really good. It's a good idea definitely to be able to know how to talk to investors, but at the end of the day, it comes down to like, if you have a product that's really cool and you're really excited about showing it and pitching it, a lot of it just comes down to persistence, right? So I've been, ever since I was like 8 years old, I've been developing and designing like web applications and things like that for my friends and family. And I was when somebody asked about when I was working at Google and when I really wanted to get in, I applied and then I got denied, and then I applied and then I got denied. And then, so this happened 5 times, right? But I was so persistent, I was so clear on my dream and my vision of what I really wanted to do that I never let that kind of stop me. And I just kept, doing it. And I'm sure like even in the beginning when, it looks really easy and successful when a lot of these startups raise money and funding, but you don't realize like all the behind the scenes, work it took just to get that first. It's not as definitely easy as it sounds, but
I was actually at Startup Weekend this weekend in Seattle. That's the reason why I was here.
Nice.
I was doing the first talk of the day, which people love slotting me there because they think that my craziness on stage will wake people up, and I think that may have worked. One of the things that I talked about, though, was that when you're showing up and you're going, I want to do a startup. And this is a phenomena that I've observed has only recently started to emerge because we've began to define creating a startup as something you can do. But I honestly don't believe that if you go, I'm going to do a startup, Joe. Well, Bob, let me tell you how to do that. Just go through these 5. No, it doesn't work. That's just not how it's going to work. And when you decided, I'm going to do a startup, it's actually the worst way to go about doing that. There's a much more organic process. And Joey, the way that, I'm sure Backplane started was not, let's make Backplane. It was a lot more organic. And I think that's something that people have to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to, we started talking about the founder of Dewey, the 15-year-old from Israel. Another, entrepreneur who's really been kind of shaking things up is Corey Levy, who's the co-founder of Wong. And One is a new app that's going to be launching fairly soon. But Corey and his co-founder, I believe it was Michael, have raised $1 million from General Catalyst and a bunch of other big firms and names in Silicon Valley to build this. And Corey's only 19 right now, which is, it's crazy that a 19-year-old, Brian, when you were initially raised, your seed funding for True, you were actually the youngest person ever to raise funding from a traditional venture capital investor, being True Ventures. And now, it seems like it's getting younger and younger how people are able to raise money and things like that. But I think, Corey is a great example. Another awesome example is, I think a friend of all of ours is Sahil Lavinia from Gumroad, and as well as a bunch of other really interesting projects. He was actually part of the founding team of Pinterest, which has really blown up recently in the last few months, and he built their iPhone app, and he's really made a huge name for himself just this last week for building the Turntable.fm iPhone app, which just, launched and things like that. So Sahil, he's 19 right now, dropped out of USC, the University of Southern California, to really work full-time on being an entrepreneur. And I think, people like Sahil and Corey and are really kind of paving the way for really following in what you really want to work on, and kind of not necessarily be cheesy, but like following your dreams. And Sahil really wanted to work on a startup and be an entrepreneur, and so he kind of took it in his own hands and really did that. And so I think, same with Corey, he interned at some of the biggest VC firms, at Techstars and at DFJ and at Union Square Ventures. He interned there, and he got this experience of being in this industry, and that, he followed his passion into being an entrepreneur. And so I think, people like Corey and Sahil are really kind of paving the way for showing younger entrepreneurs that kind of anything is really possible when it comes to the internet and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. You definitely met with Corey and Sahil, and they're very, very, passionate and persistent, like kind of entrepreneurs. And I love that, I'm really looking forward to One, as well as, a couple of the other, what Sahil's working on. Yeah, we definitely see it in Silicon Valley.
There's another group that I want to talk about that I think we may have missed, is the Peter Thiel Fellowship. There's 20, under 20.
Yeah, the 20 under 20
he accepted into his program recently. I think it was only a few months ago. And they are absolutely amazing. This group is a phenomenal group of, I'm actually a mentor in the program, and I've had the privilege of meeting most of them. And they're all geniuses. I believe there's one of them, his name is Andrew Su. He's from a company called Airy Labs. It's a games company with the goal of helping people learn better. There's another entrepreneur by the name of Gary Kurek, who created physical aids for the add-ons, essentially, to existing wheelchairs to enable handicapped individuals to move, mobility aids. And they're phenomenal because they're adding on to existing wheelchairs and not trying to build entirely new wheelchairs. But looking beyond the web, we see amazing young entrepreneurs across the world that now, because of the attention that's now focused on this area, we have programs like what Peter Thiel had created to highlight and help fund and help essentially remove all the worries that would be a part of needing to drop everything and deciding to pursue a passion, which starts a lot with financing and financial security, but at the same time comes from the attention. And these stories are now becoming extremely widespread across the world just because of the Teal Fellowship. A lot of these guys have now blown up in terms of how their level of their businesses and how what they were starting and the legitimacy behind it. Being taken seriously is extremely important, especially in the beginning when you're trying to show people that this is a very legitimate problem that you're trying to solve. And not, oh, that's cute, I'm just trying to create something that's fun and like I'm young and that's cool and we should focus on our youth. But that's not it. I really think that a lot of these guys that have been vetted and have been pushed through these programs are creating programs and solutions that should be completely considered agnostic of their age. Doesn't matter how old they are, what they're trying to solve is absolutely phenomenal, and I applaud them for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, another really great organization which I've been following a lot recently is called Startup America. And it's startupamericapartnership.org, and it's actually a government-supported agency where Steve Case, the co-founder and former CEO of AOL, is the chairman of this group, and their whole goal is to bring kind of entrepreneurship to the rest of the country. I think people have this perception that entrepreneurship only happens in cities like Silicon Valley, San Francisco, New York, Boulder, Boston, all these major cities, but it's all about kind of entrepreneurs all over the country in places like Indiana and, in North Carolina, and bringing entrepreneurship and resources to those entrepreneurs. And I think organizations like Startup America are doing awesome things because as what 20 Under 20 is doing is giving these young entrepreneurs the experience with entrepreneurship and startups and things like that. And Startup America is enabling people to be able to get resources that they need to really kind of be the entrepreneur that they want to be.
So I was recently in Lexington, Kentucky, and it's a super random area to be in, but a lot of you may actually recognize an entrepreneur that actually came from that area, Drew Curtis from Fark.com. Drew, most people don't know where he's based, but he actually lives in Lexington, Kentucky. Lexington, Kentucky is well known for its horses, and it's the equestrian capital of the world. I was able to, I was humbled to be invited out to an event that they were hosting called Mobile Lex. And the types of innovation that are happening out there is phenomenal. There's a company called Social Bond that's really stealth right now that I can't talk about at all. But the fact that it exists and it now has about 30 employees and is blowing up is an extremely cool fact that you don't have to be in one of the major city centers. And there is a lot of amazing innovation that's happening.
I think another huge trend and movement, not just that's going on right now in Silicon Valley, is the really emphasis of design very, very early on in the startup. So previously, there's a great article right now on Technology Review about a month ago, will the next Mark Zuckerberg be a designer, not a hacker? And I think design has always been very important with the startup, but I think people are really realizing the value of user experience, very early on. So there's companies like YouTube, Tumblr, Android, Flickr, Airbnb, Path, Vimeo. These are all companies that have a design kind of co-founder in the beginning from day one, and it's very important to. I think nowadays people really realize the value and the impact, especially with a lot of these apps. The reason why people use a certain product over another is a lot about user experience and design, and especially interaction, visual design of like how the product actually works and not just how it looks, right? So I think that's really important and something that I'm very passionate about. And just being a designer, my background in the trade is it definitely helps to have that, even if you're not a designer yourself, but you see like the value when you're starting your company for really great design. I think we all realize that as well.
The reason why I think that's so important is also because when you are creating a business or an idea, the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell is now even more applicable because when you are pitching a VC or when you're talking to someone who's about to work with you or become a supporter of your company, they make blink decisions now. Just the nature of this ecosystem, how fast things are moving, it's based on complete gut. And unfortunately, the unfair advantage that the designers have over non-designers is that we can create things that instantly can click if the functionality is obvious and the concept can be embodied in a visual design. And I got very lucky. My design background has helped immensely in helping ideate and create new products, even if they're only visual and not functional yet, but being able to show people that this is how this may look when it is working. And that's all that is really needed usually to get the attention of the person that you're trying to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. I think another interesting story that just happened, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago is there's a place in San Francisco called Pier 38, which has really become this startup hub and a startup home for a lot of companies. Companies like Instagram and GigaOM and socialmedia.com are all started in this place, Pier 38. And Polaris Venture Partners, which is a firm mainly based out on the East Coast.
Too.
What was that?
And Keep too.
Keep was actually started. True Ventures has their office there, as well as Dogpatch Labs. So many companies are started in this space, and unfortunately, due to some structural codes with San Francisco, the entire Pier 38 has been shut down. And so now all these companies, over 200 companies have been formed in this space, now have to try to find a new home, which is, for a city like San Francisco, which has really been trying to push entrepreneurship by, doing this huge tax break for Twitter so that they can stay, and with Zynga and all these companies. It kind of goes against everything that they've been doing lately, which is to kick all these entrepreneurs out of Pier 38. And they have until the end of the month to try to find a new home. And so, as an entrepreneur, or even as a CEO or a founder, the last thing you want to worry about is where you're going to be working from. You want to focus on building the product and whatever you're working on. And so I think it's really sad on what's happening with Pier 38, and there's been a huge petition that's gone around pretty viral online about trying to support Pier 38 and all these startups.
Yeah, I really like the idea of how the location really affects the startup. I was talking to Matt Mullenweg about this, about how when he started Automatic and WordPress, there was 20 people, that were actually working remotely, right? And so, what's the value? And, even with the tech startup, we're very, very international. I've worked with people all over the world since I was really young, about, people in Europe and Asia. But, there's something that comes down to when you're coming up with brainstorming meetings and you're coming up with design and review and development sessions, something that, you can't replicate online. I think that, there's certain things that you can actually refer or contract out to. But, having everybody together is really important, especially early on within the first, 10 employees, to be able to really just be able to work together from one place. And I definitely love, still love downtown Palo Alto. It's my favorite place for entrepreneurship. There's tons of innovation. A lot of the new app companies are starting in San Francisco. It's definitely still, the place to be in terms of just hiring talent and getting funding. Those are the two main reasons. There's definitely more startups in New York that are focused towards media and kind of, design and things like that. But I think location definitely still has a big part to do with the success of the company.
Yeah, Brian, can you actually talk about kind of your
physical environment is definitely important. I remember when we were at the pier, I was doing conference calls with seagulls next to the water, and people would hear seagulls and go, "Dude, are you outside in the ocean or are you in the office?" I'm like, "I'm at the office," and it was just a magical place. I remember that everybody came together and would run across each other, and there was a cafe across the street called Crossroads. It literally was a crossroads of a ton of entrepreneurs from around the area. But like Joey mentioned, physical environment is incredibly key for building culture in the beginning. I cannot stress that more. There's something that I've realized after 1 year and having 18 people, communication all comes down to how well people can operate on a rhythm together. And that rhythm, I think, is the culture. That rhythm is defined by how much time you spend with each other, how used to each other you are, and how, you know, different mannerisms are tolerated, how you work, and what your habits are. These things are super important to learn over time from a physical environment.
Absolutely. No, I think those are all great points. And I think, you know, as kind of things evolve, I mean, for me personally, I think Palo Alto, the energy in Palo Alto and the entrepreneurship, I mean, I definitely go between San Francisco and Palo Alto a lot, but the vibe in Palo Alto, I think, is, you know, especially with Stanford being so close and being able to really pull in the Stanford talent of some of the brightest young minds, I think that really has been this huge advantage for a city like Palo Alto. But being able to actually be, you know, one of our favorite cafes is Coupa Cafe in Palo Alto, and that really has become this big place where a lot of VCs meet entrepreneurs and where a lot of companies get formed and things like that. And, you know, Google and PayPal and Logitech's first office is on right there in the heart of Palo Alto, and all of this entrepreneurship and all these great companies were all you know, started in Palo Alto. And I think, you know, that vibe and energy has been super key to the future success of others.
Yeah, there's something about it. Just like I hop off the plane, and when I get into Palo Alto, it's like, I don't know, you just like smell the innovation in the air. It really motivates you to, you know, keep creating, you know, because 165 University is like the magic area location. It's where Google first started, PayPal first started, and Backplane's actually moving like down the block. So hopefully we can get like the same water supply that that actually went to. But yeah, it's definitely a place where, you know, I kind of meet with like just the smart people, like, you know, Stanford professors, and we talk for like 3 hours on like string theory and like, you know, where the future of singularity is going. There's a huge university called Singularity University that's pioneered by Ray Kurzweil. He's like one of my heroes and inspirations of you know, just futuristic technologies and how, you know, the singularity is affecting us, and like, I'm just so excited. There's a great article on Time that was called 2042, the year we become immortal, and I believe that we will be able to, you know, upload our consciousness online. But until then, you still need a physical kind of startup location. But you could actually go there. But.
For the sake of, I think, the entrepreneurs from around the world that are tuning in, I think it would be pretty awesome to start asking and calling out for those of you who feel that your region of the world is doing something amazing. We'd love to highlight it. It's entrepreneurship is definitely a worldwide phenomenon. I apologize to the viewers that realize that we're talking a lot about our local area, because it's natural, it's where we live, it's who we hang out with. But I think having an additional perspective would be very, very fun.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up. I think this has been a great first episode, hopefully one of many, many more to come. This will be back up on the YouTube channel once it's all edited and put together, and then hopefully we'll be making this into a real show very, very soon, and we'll be bringing in a bunch of entrepreneurs from around the world, like Brian said, to talk about kind of their stories, as well as the culture of their cities and how entrepreneurship plays a big part of that. So you can find me on the web at twitter.com/DanielBrew.
I'm Joey Primiani. My website is jprim.com, and you can follow me at JP, just at JP on Twitter.
And I am at www.brianwong.me, brianwong.me, and my Twitter handle is Brian_Wong.
Cool. So that wraps up the very first episode of Tomorrow's Web. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much to Twit for letting us do this show.
Definitely.
Have a great day.
So much.
Oh, the next show will be on October 22nd, back here on Twit Live.
See you then.